Welcome again. This is the last assignment that you're going to have for this week because you're going to have a little break. I'm going to give you a little break next week. So this assignment is going to be for April 13th, okay? Now, if you remember, we're preparing for writing an introduction and we have already done different things. First of all, exploring the topic. I asked you to look for some elementary concepts related to your research because we said that if we want to do research, we need first of all to get to know what the field of study is all about. The second thing, of course, that you did was to read, to get the definitions, to write them down, and of course this process helps you to understand the topic better and to identify the concepts that are most important for your particular research. Of course, the next step is to organize them conceptually, because if you remember, you need to present the concepts from the general to the specific. So this involves that you're going to be looking at the concepts, you're going to be looking for the relationships between them and among them, so that you can find like which ones are more general, which ones are more specific, and which ones you're more interested in. And finally, of course, we need to paraphrase them for the introduction because those concepts were written by somebody else. Those definitions are not ours, so we need to make them our own by means of understanding them and by means of restating them in our own words. Now, we used 3 examples of introductions for you to understand the structure and how they're organized and how they are developed. If you remember, the first example was a pragmatic study of transfer in L2 Japanese learners of English in the performance of invitations. And if you remember, in this one, the most important concept was communicative competence. So we started from defining communicative competence because we think this is the one that is the most general concept. We want people to be able to communicate in English. So communicative competence is the first one, and then later, of course, within the different components of communicative competence, we are interested in pragmatic competence because we believe this is the one that helps learners to successfully communicate with native speakers of the language. So in this case, pragmatic competence was the concept that came. And after pragmatic competence, we said pragmatic competence involves the performance of different kinds of speech acts. So in this case, we were interested in invitations. So invitations is our third concept. And finally, of course, we know that when non-native speakers perform speech acts such as invitations in the L2, we may be able to find pragmatic transfer. That means that they will use some patterns of the first language in the performance of the second language. So in this case, the particular concept, the smallest one, the one that we're particularly interested in, is pragmatic transfer. So you see how we proceed from the general to the specific: communicative competence, pragmatic competence, invitations, and then pragmatic transfer. The second example was the study of identity and metalinguistic awareness in native trilingual. This was the second example that we used, and of course in this case, if you remember, we started from bilingualism. The first thing that we had to do was to define bilingualism because this is the general concept that we're interested in. This is the research field. And then after that, we were interested in a particular kind of bilingualism, the one that is called bilingual acquisition or native bilingualism. So we look at the definition of bilingualism in general, then we go to a particular kind of bilingualism, and from there we were interested in 2 particular aspects of bilingual acquisition. First of all, identity, and secondly, metalinguistic awareness. So if you see, in this case again, we proceed from general to specific: bilingualism, then bilingual acquisition, and then within bilingual acquisition there are 2 variables: identity and metalinguistic awareness. This is the way in which the second example was organized. And finally, The third example that we use, in this case, if you remember, I gave you the outline and you developed an introduction. You wrote an introduction using this information. So the third example was dialogue in group research supervision. And in this one, if you remember, the first definition that we had was that one of thesis supervision, because that was the general one. We were interested in how people supervise research. And of course, we said, why do we supervise research? Why do people involve in research supervision? Because there is something that is called the communities of practice. I mean, groups of individuals that share the same profession, the same field of study, and that interact in order to create new knowledge. Okay, and so how do communities of practice create new knowledge? There are different mechanisms, but one that is particularly interesting for the person who wrote this research was dialogue. So you see, again, we go from general to specific. Thesis supervision, where does it happen? It happens in communities of practice. How do communities practice share knowledge? By means of dialogue. And we go again from the general to the specific. This is the way in which we prepare for writing an introduction. So what are you going to do? Your assignment, your little assignment, you're going to see it's very simple. It's just preparing for writing your own introduction. So what are you going to do? First of all, you're going to read your definitions again very carefully to try to understand the concepts and the field in general. Secondly, based on your research interests, because you know which of these concepts are more interesting to you, the ones that you really want to explore and to do research on. And of course, you're going to use also the variables that you explore in the articles that you summarize for your previous assignment. So you're going to use your interest and the variables that in the articles to select the concepts that you think best define your research focus. Okay, you look at all of them and say, okay, I'm interested in this one and this one and this one. After you have selected them, you're going to organize them in a diagram that is similar to the examples that I show you. So I'm giving you some space so that you can write your own concepts. You're going to put them in. You can modify the diagram as required, because maybe you will need like more concepts or fewer concepts, or they're going to be organized in a different way. And the last step is going to paraphrase them, but we're not going to do this right now. We're going to leave this for later, because first of all, I need to make sure that the concepts that you are selecting and the way that you organize them is the correct one. So the little assignment is going to be only to organize, to select your concepts and organize them. Okay, so this assignment, like I already said, is going to be for April the 13th, Monday, April 13th. This is the diagram with the example. You're going to write the title, like the title, not the title of research, but just a group of words, a little sentence that best summarize your idea about what you want to do with your research. Then you're going to write your concept from general to the specific. You can modify this diagram if you need more space, if you need like different ways of organizing it. Okay, so that will be for your assignment. Remember, it's for April 13th. Try to do it carefully. If you have some doubts, you can contact me. You can write a message in a classroom group, or you can quickly type a message in Facebook or by email, and I'll be willing to help you if you need assistance. So work on this, rest, and stay at home. Take care. Bye.